Hi, in this clip I'm going to show you how to create pivot tables. Now, if you've never used a pivot table, you're in for a treat. Pivot tables are great. They're a lot of fun and they really help you with a lot of data in Excel. We use pivot tables to help organize our data, to summarize it, and to analyze it. Let's take a look. I've got a table here and it has 8 years worth of data for all of our stores, sales data by month. We want to go ahead and get some more information out of this data. We're going to create a pivot table. To do that, we're going to go to the Insert tab, and you'll see over here in the Tables section, I have two buttons, Pivot Table and Recommended Pivot Tables. We're going to start with Recommended Pivot Tables. We're going to click on that, and you see we get this window, and Excel is trying to make pivot tables for us. It's trying to figure out what we want. And as we look through these, well, the first one is the count of January. How many times does January appear in this table of data? Well, that's not great. That's not very useful, is it? We have the sum of January by store ID. That's a little bit better. It's going to tell me the total sales in all the months of January for each store. A little closer. Sum of February, sum of March, and sum of April. It's not really the first quarter. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. And as we go through the rest of these, they're not really very useful. I got to be honest, a lot of times asking Excel to recommend a pivot table isn't the great way to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose the sum of January by store ID. That at least has some useful information. We're going to go ahead and click OK. And we get this little table. Excel went and compressed all of that data and summarized it according to this criteria. It gave me a filter for the stores, and I can go through, and if I only want to choose, let's say, one store, it'll show me that one store, the sum of all the sales of all the Januaries from 2014 to 2021 at that store. But if we come over here to the right, we see our pivot table fields. This is where we really have all of the things we want with our pivot tables. You see here we have all of these check boxes. They represent the different columns and rows. And down here we see the different fields. We have the field for filters, for columns, for values, and you see already it's got some of January and the store ID over here in the rows. Now, if we go ahead and we put year, we just click on the year checkbox. It puts year here in the values. And, well, that doesn't really help me any. It's just totaling up the year 8 times. So, not exactly what we're looking for. However, if we go ahead and we select February and March and add those to my values, now I've got first quarter data. So I can see the sum of the individual months, January, February, and March, for the first quarter for all 8 years for all of my stores. Let's go ahead and let's do this again, but let's create it ourselves manually. We're going to go and use a different worksheet as well. We're going to come over here and select this worksheet with this table. This table has store data, it has parts, price, sales representatives, the date of the orders, how many units were sold, and the revenue that was generated. This is a great table to make a pivot table from. There's something like 128 rows. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and let's go to our Insert tab again. And this time we're going to simply select Pivot Table. And the first thing it asks is, where is the table range? Where is the data we want to make this table from? And if we look at our table, we look at the dashed line around the edge here, we see that Excel has already grabbed all of that data for us, and that's fine. Now we can make a table out of less data, but I want it all. So that's okay. Then we're going to come down here. Where do you want to put the pivot table? Do you want it on a new worksheet or on the existing worksheet? We're going to go ahead and we're going to put it on a new worksheet. And it brings us over here to the new sheet, and we're ready to make our pivot table. Now we get to choose what goes into our pivot table. We are going to start by adding a filter, and our filter is going to be store. Now you notice that I clicked store and it didn't go there. I'm going to click it and drag it here into the filters. That's where I want it. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add sales rep. I'm going to add revenue and date. And for now, I think that's all I need. But look at that. That looks like a good pivot table right there. I've got a filter out here so I can filter by the store. Let's just pick a store at random. And we see it's got my 4 sales reps who work in that store. It's showing me what months they had sales in. And it's giving me the sum of that revenue. And we see a little plus sign there. I can expand that group and see when those sales were. And that's a pivot table. And that's just scratching the surface. But now you know how to create a pivot table. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.